Bom dia, pessoal, sejam todos bem-vindos a mais uma transmissão do nosso canal WillPTV com WillPTV em Space. Hoje, então, nós vamos acompanhar a missão de realocação da CREW-6 na Estação Espacial Internacional. Manobra essa que similar que nós acompanhamos com a missão MS-23 da Sociais, né, pessoal? Então, só um instante aqui. Eu esqueci de botar aqui. Então, hoje vamos acompanhar esta missão de realocação da CREW-6 na Estação Espacial Internacional. Lembrando então que a parte da desacoplagem está prevista para acontecer às 8h10 da manhã e a reacoplagem às 8h53, tá? Essa mudança então de posição geralmente acontece para a entrada então de outra espaçonave. No caso, eles estão preparando então para a entrada da Axiom número 2, né? Da missão Axiom número 2, que o lançamento então está previsto para acontecer. Já foi marcada a data no dia 21 de maio, tá? Seria na segunda, dia 8, mas foi remarcado então para dia 21 de maio essa missão então privada da SpaceX com a NASA. Lembrando então que amanhã também, a partir das 9h25 da noite, nós vamos acompanhar aí a transmissão da missão Tropics, né, da Rocket Lab. Então, a primeira de duas missões, né? Então, essa vai ser a primeira da Rocket Lab, aí junto com a NASA. Então, essa primeira missão se chama Rocket Like a Hurricane. Está previsto para acontecer aí no dia 7, domingo, às 9h25 da noite, a partir das 9h25 da noite. Então, nós vamos acompanhar a transmissão direto então da Nova Zelândia. E agora então vamos acompanhar aí toda a manobra então da CREW-6 na Estação Espacial Internacional, da missão então de realocação. Estamos então na manhã de sábado, 6 de maio de 2023. Dentro de instantes, então, iniciaremos aí a transmissão junto com a NASA, direto então da Estação Espacial Internacional. E lembrando também a vocês que na segunda-feira, então, no dia 8, a partir das 5 horas da tarde, nós vamos ter aí a estreia do quarto episódio de 5 da nossa série, então, Segundo Apoie, tá? A partir das 17 horas. Momento 8 horas da manhã no horário de Brasília. Lembrando então que a desacoplagem está prevista então para as 8h10 da manhã e a realocação às 8h53. Já já então entraremos com as imagens ao vivo então com a Estação Espacial Internacional. E aí, portanto, já estamos com as imagens ao vivo,
Saturday, May 6th.
com as imagens da Dragon Spacex, da missão CREW-6, na Estação Espacial Internacional.
2 through end in 1.602 Dragon port relocation monitoring.
Então, daqui a pouquinho, então, vamos iniciar a manobra de realocação às 8h10.
Good morning, it's Saturday, May 6th. I'm NASA's Gary Jordan. What you just heard was confirmation from the crew on board the Dragon Endeavour spacecraft, as well as inside the International Space Station here on the ground in Mission Control Houston, and the teams over in Hawthorne in SpaceX. All teams are go for undocking the Dragon Endeavour today, and for a port relocation maneuver. You're looking at a live view of Dragon Endeavour on the Zenith port as we await the departure from this docking port on the International Space Station to another. In other words, what we've referred to as a port relocation. Dragon will be moving from the International Docking Adapter 3, or IDA-3, on the Zenith or space-facing Harmony port to the IDA-2 on the forward Harmony port. This frees up the Zenith port for the arrival of the Dragon cargo vehicle on the CRS-28 mission, and prior to that, the Dragon Freedom spacecraft carrying the Axiom Mission 2 private astronauts. We expect Dragon to push away from the space station with NASA astronauts Steve Bowen and Lee Hoberg, and Maradi astronauts Tom Omniati, and Wisconsin's cosmonaut Andrei Fedyaev on board at 6:10 a.m. Central Time. Joining me from SpaceX in Hong Kong to walk you through everything today is Jesse Anderson. Hey, Jesse.
21 de maio.
Hey, Gary. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jesse Anderson, a production engineering manager at SpaceX. This will be the third port relocation of a Dragon crew spacecraft following those of CREW-1 and CREW-2 just a couple of years back. At this point, the crew is suited. Both the Dragon and APAS hatches have been closed and vestibule leak checks are complete. There are 4 seats configured right now inside of Dragon and are numbered 1 to 4 from right to left when looking at the seats. Steve is in seat 2, or the commander seat. Woody is beside him in seat 3, which for Dragon is the pilot seat. Andre is in seat 4 and Sultan is in seat 1. The joint NASA and SpaceX teams just completed their go, no-go poll for undocking, and all systems are go for today's relocation. Once Dragon pushes away from station, the full maneuver will last approximately 45 minutes.
Missão de realocação da missão CREW-6 na Estação Espacial Internacional. Missão essa para deixar então esse lugar onde eles estão vago para que a missão então da Axiom número 2 acople então nesta posição onde eles estão atualmente.
Frank, we saw that the D2DM application has stopped working. You can close that out and reopen the application.
A missão então de realocação da CREW-6 é similar ao que a gente mostramos na missão MS-23.
Is to monitor the undocking and port relocation maneuver from inside the International Space Station, part of the checks and balances that are built in to these delicate operations. But as Jesse mentioned, we have the 4 crew members inside Dragon Endeavour ready for undock. She mentioned that all teams have pulled go. So we're counting down to the initiation of what's called the undock command. That's happening in about 1 minute, 6:05 a.m. Central Time, 4:05 a.m. Pacific. At that time, the undock sequence will be initiated, and it's about a 5-minute sequence. Right now, with Dragon attached to the Zenith or space-facing side, it's attached by 12 latches, as well as an umbilical that connects and provides data and power to in between the Dragon and the International Space Station. Upon undocking, it will separate from the International Space Station and retreat out to about 60 meters. We should expect either a hold or a smooth transition over to this transition maneuver trajectory that you see. It makes its way over to a
Então eles vão
midpoint,
ficar até o
about the
segundo
halfway
ponto,
mark
né,
in
que é
between the
20
two docking
metros.
axes before making
E
its way
aí
to the new
depois eles vão
docking
fazer
axis
a
also
parte então de
at about 60 meters. From there, it
transação,
approaches
de
inwards to about 20 meters for a hold. This is the
realocação.
same waypoint too that we see
E aí no
for
final
Dragon
aí eles vão fazer
rendezvous
a
and approaches and
reaproximação.
dockings to the International Space Station. After all teams
Até então
pull
esse
go
novo
from
lugar,
waypoint 2,
local
it'll
aí
make
que
its
está
way
sendo
in. And
apontado
again, this is a
para vocês no
45-minute
diagrama.
maneuver.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. We will be standing down from the 1105
Então eles vão se afastar até mais ou menos 20 metros. E depois eles vão fazer a manobra para movimentação então para o novo local.
Perfect, Dragon copy.
Menos de 4 minutos então para a desacoplagem.
And Dragon Station Houston on the big loop, we're just trying to get some monitoring tools up for Frank, and we don't have a rush for today's activity, so we're going to catch this on the other side of our handover.
Então com as imagens ao vivo, então já da Dragon SpaceX.
So that read up to the crew, Frank Rubio, again inside the International Space Station, has a display tool called the RPOP, Rendezvous Proximity on Operations Panel, and a series of software that allow him to monitor Dragon's undocking and port relocation maneuver, getting telemetry, and also the ability, as a safety measure, to send commands to the Dragon, should commands not be enabled from inside the Dragon cabin. As a safety precaution, you heard the teams wave off from the initial, what they call 11:05 undocking time. That's referring to 6:05 a.m. Central Time. And what that means is that's the initiation of the undock command. Again, it's a 5-minute sequence until we actually see the physical separation 5 minutes later. For a port relocation maneuver, there is a generous window built into the operations. So again, they just identified that there is no rush to get separated from the International Space Station. That window that they were talking about is the data and communications coming from TDRS satellites.
Houston Station on 2. I have good feed on Dragon docking monitor.
Copy.
Então 3 minutos aí para a desacoplagem. Estamos aí com as imagens ao vivo, então direto da Dragon, da Endeavour Dragon SpaceX. Vamos acompanhar aí a manobra então de realocação. Então toda a tripulação da Dragon está a bordo.
So you hear those words up to the crew, over to confirming from Frank Rubio, again, a NASA astronaut on the International Space Station side of this operation, confirming that he's got his displays. What they're going to do is they're going to wait onto the other end of what's called a handover.
Menos de 2 minutos então para a desacoplagem. Estamos ao vivo então direto da Estação Espacial Internacional.
That handover is
A desacoplagem está
expected in
prevista para
about
acontecer às 8h10 da manhã, no horário de Brasília.
And what the teams are going to do is wait
E a
until that
realocação
time
às
when we regain communications
8h53.
and initiate a new undock sequence command at 6:18 a.m. Central Time. Again, that's the 5-minute period that allows umbilicals to disconnect,
Então que a
as
missão
well
da
as the
Rocket
12
Lab,
latches that are
da
currently securing Dragon
Rocket Like
Endeavour
a
to the
Hurricane,
International Space
foi
Station. That
remarcado
5-minute
então
sequence
para
puts our new
amanhã,
target around
dia 7, a partir
6:23
das
a.m. Central Time.
9h25 da noite. Direto então da Nova Zelândia.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop for more words on docking time, undock time.
Então nesse momento está tudo ok para o undocking, né, para a desacoplagem.
Alright, so station monitoring program is back up and running. We are now targeting a new undock sequence time start of 1118 Zulu. And you have a go to raise visors if desired.
1180 and our visors are open.
8h10 da manhã, no horário de Brasília.
So that new undocking sequence initiation start was read up to the crew. Again, we're targeting 6:18 for that undock sequence command. That puts our undock and physical separation targeted for 6:23 a.m. Central Time. In the meantime, because we're waiting for this handover period, they are able to pull their visors up. Again, as a safety measure built into the operations, visors are down during some of the most significant moments of this maneuver, including the physical separation
Estamos aí só
from the space
aguardando então
station for Dragon Endeavour. With the visors closed, the
a
suits themselves can
desacoplagem.
provide an extra layer of protection in terms of pressure. But since we're just waiting here idly for that handover period, expected in just a little more than 5 minutes, where we'll lose video that we're seeing here from space,
Então a desacoplagem foi
we expect to
remarcada
regain
para
that
as
in just a short order,
8h23.
probably around 20 seconds to 30 seconds. And again, we're targeting that undock sequence to initiate at about 6:18, so a little bit of margin built into the handover operations.
Então foi anunciado aí novo horário para a desacoplagem às 8h23.
Dragon crew, this is station. I have a little easy listening for you while we wait.
É hora de colocar a música lá. Ai, meu Deus.
Frank, I hope you enjoy a short time without us. We should be back in a couple hours, we hope. Sounds great.
Some great music from the crew as they are awaiting undocking and relocation of the Dragon Endeavour to a new port.
Então faltando aí 10 minutos então para o início da manobra de realocação. 8h13 no horário de Brasília. Estamos acompanhando direto da CREW-6 da Dragon
We are
Endeavour.
about 5 minutes away from
Manobra então
the
de
undocking command.
realocação.
And so the crew, what you're seeing on your screen is the crew preparing for relocation. We've got a live view inside of Dragon Endeavour. And you can see both the pilot and
Então lembrando
commander
então que
in
essa
your
manobra
view.
de realocação é feita então para dar lugar aí a entrada da missão Axioma número 2, que vai ser realizada então no dia 21 de maio. Portanto, estamos com as imagens direto da Estação Espacial Internacional, a Dragon. E lembrando mais uma vez que amanhã, então, a partir das 9h25 da noite, nós vamos acompanhar a missão da Rocket Lab, a missão Rocket Like a Hurricane. Tivemos aí a perda de sinal esperada.
And as you see, we're starting to enter into that handover period that was mentioned, which was part of the reason for the new undocking time being announced at, again, 6:23 is what we're targeting for physical separation. So we lose video and audio communications from the International Space Station. Lots of teams working in synchronization for this delicate procedure today. What you're looking
Então,
at
no
is a live
caso,
view of the International Space
esse
Station
lá foi
Flight
então o
Control
horário
Room
que
here
foi
in Houston,
remarcado
Texas. The teams here are monitoring
para
the International Space
a
Station as a
desacoplagem,
vehicle and
justamente então
seeing
foi
through
por
the
conta
operations for both the vehicles,
que
systems, as well as the
estamos em
crew.
cima então de um período
Leading
de
the teams
sem
here
comunicação
in Mission Control
com a
Houston
Estação
is Flight Director
Espacial,
Pooja
né, que
Jasrani.
são períodos de comunicação já
She's
esperada, né, de
working
blackout,
with
já
her
esperado.
counterpart, the mission director over in
É por isso que
SpaceX
foi
in
remarcado
Hawthorne,
aí
Alex
para
Kanellakos,
esse novo
the mission
horário às
director overseeing the
8h23.
operations from the Hawthorne side. All teams are talking.
Então temos aí as equipes lá na Califórnia, da SpaceX, e em Houston, da Estação Espacial Internacional.
And a correction, Alex Kanellakos is the Capcom that you see there in Mission Control Houston. Next to Pooja Jasrani is his voice that you're hearing on what's called the Big Loop. The Big Loop is a joint loop where the teams here in Mission Control Houston, as well as the teams over in Hawthorne, they talk with both the crew on inside Dragon Endeavour as well as inside the International Space Station. All teams communicating on a single loop and staying completely in sync. As we wait for the handover period to come back with audio and video from the International Space Station, a little more on why we are doing a port relocation.
Dragon SpaceX on the big.
Dragon visors are down.
Copy that. Visors are closed and ground is go for undock at 1118 Zulu.
Então já foi dado a liberação para a desacoplagem nesse momento. Então
Again,
lembrando que a
6:18 a.m.
desacoplagem
Central Time,
está
the target
prevista
for
para
the
as
undock command
8h23.
being sent. It's a 5-minute sequence
Já
to get us to
voltamos
physical
aí para a
separation 5
comunicação.
minutes later. That's happening.
Station Houston on the Big Loop performed steps 2 through end in 1.602 Dragon port relocation monitoring.
Station copies. And station crew is ready for Dragon undocking.
Estamos só aguardando então as imagens, modo então visual da desacoplagem.
And you heard that go from all teams, from Mission Control Houston, from the
Da
teams
Estação
over in
Espacial,
Hawthorne, as
estamos
well as
aguardando
the
as
crews
imagens
inside
voltar.
Dragon Endeavour and International Space Station. All teams are go, counting down. Less than 30 seconds from that undock command being initiated. KU or video from the International Space Station not required for that
Então dentro de
initiation
instantes
to
aí
occur.
teremos a desacoplagem da
And that triggers
Endeavour,
Dragon to
Dragon Endeavour.
automatically start its undocking sequence. Again, that is retracting the umbilical that connects the Dragon Endeavour to the International Space Station, providing data and power.
Undock sequence commanded.
Então já foi dada então a sequência da desacoplagem.
Dragon copies.
Sequência
Right
de
on time,
desacoplagem
6:18 a.m.
iniciada.
Central Time, the undock sequence has commanded. It's a 5-minute sequence again until physical separation at 6:23.
Estamos aí só aguardando as imagens então da separação física da Dragon
What's happening now is the
SpaceX.
umbilical is retracting. That umbilical originally providing data and power in between the station over to the Dragon. There are 12 latches that are currently securing Dragon to the International Space Station. They will be released 6 at a time.
Umbilical demate complete and nominal.
That first step is complete. With the umbilical completely retracted, the first 6 latches are starting to retract.
Estamos acompanhando então a missão da CREW-6 da manobra então de realocação Estação Espacial Internacional. Desacoplagem física então está previsto para acontecer às 8h23
As Gary
da
mentioned,
manhã no horário
the
de Brasília.
hooks will begin to retract. That will allow the Dragon spacecraft to then fire its Draco thrusters in 2 short bursts to break the stiction between it and the docking port and then physically separate from its station. Again, that will happen at the 6:23 a.m. Central Time mark. Then Dragon will slowly back away from station and activate its LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging.
Então,
and that'll
nesse
begin
novo
tracking
horário
the
das
space station.
8h23 da
Once it acquires a solid
desacoplagem,
signal, the ground will
acrescentando
command
então
Dragon
mais
to hold
40 minutos, nós
approximately
vamos
60
então
meters
acompanhar
away
a
from station.
reacoplagem às
And once everything
9h13
looks good, Dragon will begin to move
da manhã.
from in front of the station to above it. So again, we are waiting for the hooks to complete unlatching, and then we can begin the physical separation from the station.
And again, as we count down, video is not required for the undocking to occur. That handover period that we were talking about was audio, so you're hearing the big loop and the communications from the crew on board the International Space Station as well as Dragon Endeavour. Teams are monitoring all along the way, receiving telemetry and data from Dragon.
First set of hooks open and nominal.
6 hooks down and 6 to go. Again, teams in Houston on your screen on the left, as well as in Hawthorne, California on your screen on the right, monitoring these operations. We're on track for an on-time physical separation.
Estamos aguardando então as imagens da separação física da Dragon. Estamos então ao vivo mostrando para vocês a realocação da CREW-6 da Dragon Endeavour, direto então da Estação Espacial Internacional, onde essa manobra então vai dar lugar aí para a entrada da missão Axioma número 2.
Counting down about 20 seconds or more from physical separation. Standing by.
Estamos aguardando então aí o momento da separação física da Dragon Spacex.
All hooks open and nominal.
Tudo ok por enquanto, né, com a sequência?
Dragon separation confirmed.
Separação confirmada da Dragon Spacex. Às 8h23 então da manhã, no horário de Brasília, então foi confirmada a separação da Dragon
Confirmed physical separation.
SpaceX
Good undock
da
burns 1 and 2.
Estação Espacial
The retreat rate is
Internacional.
nominal. That undock time was 6:23 a.m. Central Time. At the time of undocking, Space Station and Dragon Endeavour were 258 statute miles north off the coast of Australia.
Então, a região da Austrália, às 8h23 da manhã.
Relocate burn 0 complete.
Nós acompanhamos aí então o momento da separação da desacoplagem da Dragon Space.
Undocking burns 1 and 2 allow for the physical separation of Dragon from the station. Relocate burn.
Então nesse momento eles estão iniciando a manobra então de afastamento.
And the International Space Station up through the docking
Eles
axis
vão
to
se
the 60-meter
afastar
point.
da Estação Espacial Internacional até mais ou menos 20 metros.
To the new axis.
De distância horizontal. E aí então eles vão fazer a manobra de reposicionamento para a realocação do novo ponto de acoplagem.
Again, no video from the International Space Station.
Ainda não
We are
temos
getting data and
vídeo
telemetry
apenas dados de telemetria.
Showing the Dragon and its nominal backing away from that port.
Ainda não temos visual da Estação Espacial Internacional, apenas estão dados de telemetria. Estamos aguardando o sinal de vídeo voltar.
Dragon SpaceX ground has confirmed good rail nav performance and will be commanding hold.
Dragon copies.
E portanto estamos de volta então com as imagens de vídeo da estação da Dragon. Então fazendo aí a manobra de afastamento da Estação Espacial Internacional.
Getting great.
Houston station on 2, ISS thrusters are enabled.
E imagens da Dragon SpaceX. Da Endeavour.
Copy.
Dragon is in command hold 1.
Dragon copies.
As Dragon Endeavour passes over a ground station, still waiting for a communication from the station, but we are able to get video from Dragon itself. This is the centerline camera looking right down at its original docking port, that zenith port that you see at the front end of the station,
Dragon
at the
Endeavour
Harmony
da
module.
Estação Espacial
Backed away
Internacional.
and commanded a hold,
Estamos aí
approximately
acompanhando
80
a
meters.
manobra então de realocação da Dragon Endeavour na Estação Espacial
Teams are
Internacional.
now assessing to make sure everything is ready for that transition maneuver that gets it to the new docking axis.
A desacoplagem então aconteceu às 8h23 no horário de Brasília.
That hold is settling at just under 89 meters.
SpaceX ground has confirmed good rail nav performance. You are go to command, go to relocate.
Então foi dada a continuidade então para a realocação agora. Nesse momento então pela comunicação de rádio então foi dada autorização para a realocação.
So we just completed a hold for redocking systems and alignment evaluation and got a go for the maneuver to begin Dragon moving towards its new docking port. Now this process will take about 15 minutes. And this will move the Dragon vehicle towards the forward port of Harmony and IDA 2, or the International Docking Adapter 2. You can see on your screen, the transition maneuver is what will happen next. That move from the current docking port to its new parking port.
That's right, Jesse, and that retreat got us to just under 90 meters. So to get to that transition point, the crew is actually making a slow maneuver still along the undocking axis to get back down to the original 60-meter hold point. So they're actually, it kind of looks like they're redocking a bit, but all they're doing is just getting to that transition hold point.
And Dragon SpaceX, you have a go to raise visors per crew preference.
SpaceX Dragon visors coming up.
Estamos aí então a
Again, the most critical
20 metros
moments of the
da Estação Espacial
port relocation
Internacional.
maneuver are the undocking
Nesse
and
momento então
redocking.
já começou
The
a
actual
manobra de
contact with the
realocação.
international docking adapters on the International Space Station. During those times,
Após então a
visors are down,
desacoplagem que
the
foi
crew has that
feita às
extra layer of
8h23 da
protection, but
manhã,
during the transition maneuver,
no horário de
you have the
Brasília.
ability to open up their visors, and you'll see them close those visors once again once we get the initiation to go inside waypoint 2 and redock on the new axis on the forward port. Again, what the crew is doing is coming back in to 60 meters. They had a commanded hold at just under 89 meters, so they're making a slow and methodical movement inside, still along that same undocking axis, but they just want to meet the 60-meter point. We're now inside 71 meters.
You're seeing live on your. Go ahead, Gary.
Oh yeah, I was just listening to the flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston. They're tracking this maneuver inside to get to that 60-meter hold point, and are calling out some good reads. So it looks like that maneuver is as expected to 60 meters. Everything's looking good.
What you're seeing on your screen is a live view inside of Dragon Endeavour, and you can see on your left-hand side, in seat 2 is Commander Steve Bowen, and in the seat on the right-hand side is Woody Hoberg, who is in the pilot seat.
Dragon has reached the 60-meter hold point, and you are go to command relocate transfer to begin axis transition. Reminder that soft capture ring deploy will begin in the relocate to axis state.
Executing relocate transfer.
Então agora foi dado então o procedimento para a inicialização então para a realocação. O tempo de hold então acabou e agora eles vão iniciar então de fato a manobra de realocação nesse momento.
And with that, the command, the crew, again as a recap, the crew did reach that 60-meter hold point coming in from 89 meters. And with good data being received from here in Mission Control Houston, teams gave a go to initiate that transition maneuver. So it is slow and methodical. It's a two-step process to transition to the new axis by way of a midpoint. So from the original docking axis to the midpoint is approximately an 11-minute maneuver. It sort of looks like the tip of a triangle, the maneuver to get from one docking axis to the other. So it goes straight out to the midpoint, about the halfway point between the two axes, and then from the midpoint of the transition initiates another maneuver to get down to the new docking axis. The transition is from 60 meters on the undocking axis to 60 meters on the new docking axis. So we should be regaining some video. There it is.
Estamos agora, nesse momento, a 61 metros da Estação Espacial Internacional. Então, nesse momento, vai ser então feita a manobra de realocação da Estação Espacial Internacional para Dragon Endeavour.
The Near Space Network. We're getting that video from Dragon as we move our way outside of the ground stations that were providing video feeds directly from Dragon. Everything's looking good on this port relocation maneuver so far. Again, it's about 11 minutes to get to the midpoint. Just a quick
então, aí no momento está tudo ok aí para então, o início da manobra de realocação da Dragon
high level,
Endeavour.
what we're doing today is to move from the zenith port of the Harmony module over to the forward-facing port. So you see CREW-6 Dragon on its original docking port is being moved to that forward side that you see on this new
que a Dragon
graphic.
vai então ficar nessa nova posição aí,
The
onde
main
está
reason
mostrando
is for the arrival of the
o diagrama aí para
Dragon
vocês,
cargo
né,
spacecraft,
da Estação
CRS-28
Espacial
mission,
Internacional, onde temos já aí
carrying
acoplados,
a
né,
precious
além da
cargo inside the
Dragon
unpressurized trunk section
Endeavour,
of
temos a
the
Soyuz
cargo
da missão
Dragon vehicle, our
MS-23
new
e da
IROSAs,
Progress
or rollout
83.
International Space Station rollout solar arrays. This is part of a series of power upgrades to the International Space Station that are being planned. There's been several
Então, dentro de
spacewalks
instantes aí, teremos aí
install
o início da
already 4
transição para a nova
IROSAs,
posição.
which are currently installed and providing power to the International Space Station. There's planned to be an additional 2 coming up on CRS-28. Docking to the zenith port allows the robotic arm. In this graphic, you see sort of to the right of the 1A power channel that Canadarm2 will position itself and move itself along the station's truss and reach out to grab the IROSAs from the unpressurized trunk. The reach of the Canadarm2 is just so that they can reach the zenith port. Can't quite reach the forward port. So this relocation maneuver allows for Dragon to position to the Dragon crewed vehicle to easily move between the 2 ports so that the Dragon cargo vehicle can arrive on the zenith port. That launch is currently targeted for June 3rd. In between that operation, we are scheduled to launch the Axiom Mission 2 private astronaut mission to the station. They will depart in late May and will also dock to that zenith or space-facing port, leaving with enough margin for the cargo vehicle to come and bring the IROSAs to the International Space Station.
Yeah, that's right, Gary. And right now, we have the CREW-6 crew on board, and they are the crew that is relocating the Dragon vehicle currently. Today will mark the 64th day on station for this crew, who lifted off from Kennedy Space Center on March 2nd at 12:34 a.m. Eastern Time and arrived at station about 24 hours later. And so far, the crew members have dedicated hundreds of hours to scientific research in the orbiting laboratory. And last week, Bowen and Al-Nayati completed a spacewalk to prepare for upcoming solar array installation that Gary was mentioning. Those arrays will then launch this summer, as he mentioned, on the cargo Dragon spacecraft. And the mission is the 6th certified crew mission NASA and SpaceX have planned as part of the agency's commercial crew program.
video from the International Space Station as we're in an orbital nighttime. We're now currently over the North Pacific Ocean. You can see the navigation lights coming from Dragon, the starboard green light and the port red light, as well as the internal cabin lights coming from that window on the forward bulkhead section of Dragon Endeavour. A quick recap, the crew undocked from the Zenith or space-facing port at 6:23 a.m. Central Time, made its way along the docking axis, down over to the transition point, and from the transition point at about 60 meters, initiated a transfer maneuver to the midpoint.
Dragon has reached the docking axis midpoint.
Dragon copies.
This graphic does a good job of showing that maneuver. Again, it looks like the sort of the tip of a triangle. It's a two-step process to get from the original docking axis to the new axis by way of a midpoint. Made the waypoint a little sooner than anticipated, making great time. It's a smooth transition from the midpoint. There's no hold at the midpoint. It just makes a maneuver directly to the new axis. The target on the new axis is about 60 meters from the new docking port. Latest calls from here in Mission Control Houston show approximately an 8-minute maneuver. So sometime around 6:50 a.m. Central Time is when we can expect arrival at the new axis. Again, in the meantime, flight
No momento,
controllers
então,
will
estamos
continue to monitor all
acompanhando
the
aí a
systems
manobra
and make changes
de
along the way.
realocação da Dragon Endeavour, na Estação
Everything going
Espacial
very
Internacional.
smoothly for this transition maneuver so far.
Onde eles estão fazendo tipo uma espécie então de triângulo, né? Vocês viram ali, então, um ponto médio ali desse triângulo. E agora eles estão indo se dirigindo para a nova posição para a reacoplagem.
Station and Dragon are approximately 263 statute miles above the North Pacific Ocean. We're expecting sunrise in just about a minute. We should be getting some better views from the International Space Station and Dragon as they start to illuminate. We've been conducting this operation so far entirely in an orbital nighttime. So as we transition to the new axis, we'll hopefully be getting some better views in the current plan, as long as we stick on the timeline. Again, this is a very flexible procedure. We can command holds if needed, but so far the timeline gets us to dock during an orbital daytime.
If you're just now joining us, Crew Dragon has undocked from the station. It first detached its two umbilicals that connect power and data, and then the 12 hooks holding Dragon in place retracted. The thrusters on Dragon, the Draco thrusters, thrusted the vehicle away from the station, and now the vehicle is maneuvering.
Complete.
Então, nesse momento, a manobra de realocação já foi concluída. E agora nós vamos, então, nos aproximar novamente da Estação Espacial Internacional. Estamos aí a mais ou menos a 60 metros da estação. A manobra, então, para a realocação já foi concluída. E agora, então, vamos nos reaproximar novamente, então, da Estação Espacial Internacional.
As we enter into an orbital daytime, the views of Dragon Endeavour are starting to get a bit clearer. You can see the camera from one of the external cameras on the International Space Station trained on Dragon Endeavour. It's currently a little over 57 meters from the International Space Station, making its way to the new docking axis.
Estamos a 57 metros,
That
então, da
transition maneuver
estação.
looking pretty good. You can see the Draco thrusters firing to continue orienting Dragon Endeavour in such a way that its trajectory is planned to meet with the new axis. Right now, teams here in Mission Control Houston are polling to consider a smooth transition at the 60-meter point over to waypoint 2.
No momento, então, estamos a 58 metros. Estamos se afastando um pouquinho mais aí para então, posicionamento final para reaproximação.
We're expecting arrival on the new docking axis in approximately 2 minutes.
8 horas e 50 minutos no horário de Brasília. Então, nesse momento, a Dragon Endeavour já fez então a manobra de reposicionamento para a realocação. E agora estamos aí a 60 metros então do novo ponto para a reacoplagem na Estação Espacial Internacional.
And as Dragon Endeavour continues its approach to the new docking axis, that 60-meter point, we can expect to hold at about 60 meters before proceeding into the next waypoint, waypoint 2, which is about 20 meters.
Dragon Station SpaceX on the Big Loop. Dragon has arrived at the second 60-meter hold point and is configured for docking. Confirm readiness for approach 1.
Nesse momento estamos a 60 metros da Estação Espacial Internacional e foi dada autorização então para o procedimento então de acoplagem. Novamente, então, um novo ponto na Estação Espacial Internacional. Estamos então acompanhando a manobra de realocação da CREW-6 da Dragon Endeavour.
You heard that call up to the crew aboard Dragon Endeavour.
Lembrando então a vocês que amanhã, domingo, a partir das 9h25 da noite, vamos acompanhar então o primeiro lançamento da missão Rocket Lab, uma missão com a NASA, da Like a Hurricane. Rocket Like a Hurricane. A partir então das 9h25 da noite.
Dragon, ground is go, and you have a go to command resume to approach waypoint 2.
Então foi dada a liberação para até a ida ao ponto número 2, a 20 metros da estação. Então, eles vão de 60 metros a 20 metros e aí eles vão ter um novo tempo de hold para então a aproximação final.
Great news. Dragon has arrived at the docking axis and also...
Approach is resuming to waypoint 2. Monitor per step 3 in 1.102. Dragon approach and retreat monitoring.
Station copy, step 3, 1.102.
And Dragon has already resumed, or has already made it to the docking axis. They did a poll, a go, no go poll to approach waypoint 2 and got the go. So now they are currently approaching waypoint 2. Dragon is going to hold one final time for teams on the ground, the astronauts aboard Dragon, to do a final check before docking to the station. Now, there aren't any strict requirements to complete docking during a day or night pass, but there is always the chance that this hold could continue until lighting conditions on the docking port are ideal. Now, once Dragon is ready, it will begin the final approach.
SpaceX Dragon, visors are down.
Copy, visors are down.
And again, that extra layer of protection through the delicate maneuver of docking to the International Space Station. Visors are down through this maneuver to waypoint 2. They're making great progress from 60 meters to 20 meters. They're currently at 30 meters.
Station Houston, On step 3, please let us know when your review is complete.
Então, estamos dirigindo ao ponto de 20 metros da Estação Espacial Internacional, como vocês podem acompanhar aí nas imagens.
Copy.
Estamos a 23 metros nesse momento.
Again, many players in this delicate maneuver you're hearing.
Station Houston at waypoint 2. Dragon will briefly pause to align for docking, then automatically resume approach.
Estamos a 21 metros.
Station copies.
20 metros agora, então, do novo ponto então de acoplação.
As a reminder, once Dragon is in the crew hands-off point, retreat and breakout are not permitted.
Portanto, estamos agora no ponto número 2, aí a 20 metros da Estação Espacial Internacional. São 8 horas e 57 minutos pelo horário de Brasília. Estamos aí acompanhando os procedimentos então finais aí da reaproximação da Dragon Endeavour, na manobra então de realocação na Estação Espacial Internacional.
And station copies and I'm monitoring via step 5.
Those are good words. Step 5.
All right, lots of action in that last minute or so. The team's Dragon has a relatively new capability to pause at waypoint 2 versus a commanded hold.
Estamos aí então no segundo ponto de
the transition
acoplagem
from at waypoint 2
da
is
Estação
instead of
Espacial
a commanded
Internacional,
hold,
onde
it
estamos
is
aí a
an
20
approach
metros
prep, which is about a 1-minute
da
pause. And you can
estação.
see
Estamos aí
the
então
resume
aguardando
has already begun
a
from waypoint 2.
liberação
So
então
we are
para
closing in inside 20 meters,
a aproximação final.
actually 17 meters and closing at a rate of about 8 centimeters a second.
Estamos aí então nos aproximando. Estamos então já a menos de 20 metros aí da Estação Espacial Internacional, no momento então da manobra de realocação. Estamos chegando já no novo ponto então para a acoplagem.
15 meters.
15 metros.
Teams are tracking a good approach. We're expecting contact in approximately 3 minutes.
Estamos a 15 metros então da acoplagem. 8 horas e 59 minutos. 13 metros. Estamos aí a 13 metros. Dez metros.
Meters.
10 metros, confirmado então 10 metros da estação.
This Dragon is slowly
9 horas
approaching.
no horário de Brasília.
A call for a crew hands-off point. That is where the spacecraft, when it's
Estamos a
about 2
menos
meters
então
away
de
from the
8
docking port,
metros.
and that means that any aborts need to be initiated by Dragon's flight computer after that point rather than by the crew. Then the vehicle will stand by for initial contact and capture, and then will be followed by a series of events to hard dock Dragon to the new port.
Estamos a menos de 5 metros.
That's right, Jesse, and you can see that docking ring is extended. We'll report the docking time at the time of physical contact and confirmation of a soft dock inside 5 meters.
Copy, 5 meters.
5 metros, confirmado aí então para vocês.
Such a cool view here as Dragon approaches the new
2
docking
metros.
port.
Estamos a 3 metros, no caso, agora.
3 meters and closing.
2 meters.
2
Copy,
metros.
2 meters.
Estamos agora a 2 metros da Estação Espacial.
2 meters, chop, or crew hands off point.
1 metro.
1 meter.
Copy, 1 meter.
E, portanto, tivemos o contato.
Soft capture complete.
Então, nós temos aí o contato feito.
Dragon copies and concurs.
A acoplagem, então, feita com sucesso na manobra, então, de
That docking
realocação
time is 7:01
da Dragon
a.m. Central
Endeavour.
Time. Dragon and
Às
station at
9
the time
horas
of
e 2
docking were
minutos no horário
262
de Brasília,
statute
então
miles
nós
off the East
tivemos aí
Coast
a manobra
of the
então, de
United States,
reacoplagem
just off the
feita
coast of
com
South Carolina.
sucesso.
Ring retraction in progress.
Dragon copies, season 6.
The soft capture ring on Dragon, you can see, is retracting, pulling Dragon in physically to meet up with the International docking adapter. This maneuver sets Dragon up to position itself in such a way to start the hard capture sequence. Really the reverse of what we just saw for undocking from the Zenith port. We'll attach Dragon Endeavour by way of 12 hooks that secure Dragon to the station, followed by extending an umbilical connection and allowing the transfer of power and data from the International Space Station to Dragon, as well as reverse.
As Gary mentioned, we will see the reverse of what we saw during undocking. First, 6 hooks will begin to deploy, and then the second set of 6 hooks will deploy, followed by the umbilicals. And this process will take about 15 minutes or so. And after all docking events are successful, then flight controllers will configure Dragon for dock operations, connecting power and data to the spacecraft. The crew will be able to get out of their suits and set them up to dry and begin operations to get the hatches back open. Now, this includes pressurizing the vestibule and a new round of leak checks. And depending on the exact timing, they have the option to have a meal if needed, or they can wait until they're back on board station. And we do expect it to take about 2 hours before the hatches are back open.
Flight controller is tracking a good alignment as the soft capture ring retracts and pulls Dragon Endeavour in for the hard capture sequence. That alignment is good. That means the next step will be to initiate that hard capture sequence. Again, 12 hooks and an umbilical.
Ring retraction complete. Docking sequence is holding for MCS reconfiguration.
Anytime.
For those following along, ring retraction is complete. Teams are assessing the alignment and will give the crew a status of when the hard capture sequence starts with latching 12 hooks or initiating the driving of those 12 hooks to secure Dragon firmly to the station for a hard capture, followed by the extension of an umbilical. Those hooks will be driven 6 at a time. For those tracking this maneuver today,
Station Houston on the big loop, MCS configured, proceeding with hook driving.
Station call.
part of the delicate procedure here is a dance between the commands sent to Dragon and the initiation of the hooks and the attitude control of the International Space Station itself. Through the hard capture sequence, the International Space Station is transitioned to control its attitude on the control moment gyros only, no thrusters. With the International Space Station attitude control configured, the first set of hooks are driving. Again, for those following along with today's operations, undocking and physical separation from the station's zenith port was at 6:23 a.m. Central Time, and they redocked 38 minutes later, 7:01 a.m. Central Time, to the forward port.
Nesse momento, então, eles estão fazendo o procedimento para a abertura então da escotilha, onde então eles vão fazer o equilíbrio, né, da pressurização tanto então, na estação espacial quanto dentro da cápsula Dragon, né, para poder então fazer aí a reabertura então da escotilha.
Though you can't see much from this view, lots happening with some of the hardware on board Dragon. Those first set of hooks are complete. The second is driving. Again, there are 12 hooks that'll secure Dragon to station, and hard capture complete will occur once the umbilical is mated between Dragon and the International Space Station.
And the view you are seeing is Crew Dragon having moved from IDA 3, or the International Docking Adapter 3, on the Zenith or space-facing Harmony port, to IDA 2 on the forward Harmony port. And it is currently in progress of completing the hard capture
hard capture complete.
Então foi concluído a manobra então de faz para foi concluída então a manobra para igualar as pressurizações então da cápsula Dragon com a Estação Espacial Internacional nesse momento. Então os dois estão iguais, né? A parte então da pressurização, né? Estão igualados. E agora nesse momento então, daqui a alguns instantes, teremos então a reabertura então da escotilha da Dragon Endeavour, né, para o reingresso então da tripulação da Dragon na Estação Espacial Internacional. Lembrando então que amanhã, a partir então das 9h25 da noite, nós vamos acompanhar aqui a missão da Rocket Lab, chamada então Rocket Like a Hurricane, direto então da Nova Zelândia, das 9h25 da noite. O lançamento então do Electron. E lembrando então que na segunda-feira, na nossa parte de matemática, a partir das 17 horas, nós vamos ter aí o episódio então de número 4 do nosso programa, então segundo o qual
that the hard capture has been completed. What that means is the 12 hooks are now deployed. We are just waiting for the completion of the umbilical attachment.
Lembrando então que essa manobra foi feita para então dar lugar aí à acoplagem para a missão da Axioma número 2, que está prevista então para acontecer no dia 21 de maio, lá no complexo 39A, no Centro Espacial Kennedy, na Flórida.
And the umbilical is currently being extended.
Lembrando que essa missão da Axioma é a missão então privada com a SpaceX e NASA.
Houston Station on 2, do I have a go for 1.403?
Docking sequence complete. Crew Dragon Endeavour, welcome back to the International Space Station.
Então foi concluída então a procedimento então de acoplagem nesse momento.
We hope so, and we hope to see him real soon. Thank you very much.
E eles estão de volta novamente à Estação Espacial Internacional. Então foi tudo feito com sucesso aí, então como vocês puderam acompanhar.
You are go to DOF suits per procedure 4.012. We will bring the cameras external shortly.
Então é isso, pessoal. Nós vamos então encerrar aqui a nossa transmissão por hoje. Lembrando então que amanhã, a partir das 21h25 da noite, então nós vamos acompanhar a missão com a Rocket Lab, Rocket Like a Hurricane, com Electron. Tá certo? Então a gente se vê amanhã à noite.
All right, you heard those congratulatory words all around from Steve Bowen, commander inside the Crew Dragon Endeavour, from inside the International Space Station, Frank Rubio, and here in Mission Control Houston, Capcom, Alex Kanalakos. Now that Crew 6 is hard docked